Hi folks, Fuerf here. A few things that have come up lately on YouTube and in life in general have got me thinking about race, and whenever I think about race, I think about the very moment during which I first learned of the concept of race. I remember it like it was yesterday, but I couldn't have been older than 3 or 4 years old. I was in preschool in a church in my hometown. I remember where the church is. Sometimes I still drive by it, and I think about this. One morning, we were all gathered together, and the ladies that taught or handled the preschool, they gathered us all around, and they wanted to tell us something. They wanted to have a conversation with us. They wanted to teach us something. So we all came in, we all sat. And one of the ladies asked me to stand up. Okay, so I stood up. And she turns to me and she says, "What color are you? What color are you?" So I thought about it for a second, and I looked at my skin, and I said, well, I'm pink, right? Because any 4-year-old boy of my complexion is bound to be pretty pink. I was a rosy-cheeked youngster, and so naturally that would be the color that I would choose. And furthermore, because that was the color in the Crayola box that most closely matched the color of my own skin, was pink, so it was an easy choice. Well, I thought I had it right, but apparently I did not pass the test. She said, no, try again. Try again. So I thought a little deeper. I decided, insofar as a 4-year-old can decide to get deep about something, I got a little deeper, and I said, okay, so if I'm not pink, then what color is she trying to get out of me? What's the correct answer here? So I thought, well, it's perfectly obvious to me. I don't know why I didn't see it before. She's obviously asking me what my favorite color is. So I said, well, I'm blue, because blue was my favorite color. That's an answer that should have been just fine for anybody. It wasn't the obvious fact, but it certainly said something about me, about the person I was as an individual. But she wasn't looking for answers about us as individuals. She sat me down, and then she stood up another boy. And as I'm sure you've all guessed, this other boy had brown skin. He was the one in our class. And then she asked him what color he was. And I don't remember exactly whether he knew the answer, but all of this leads up to her explaining to us that this boy over here was black, and all the rest of us were white. And maybe I'm just a little bit slow, or was back then, but it didn't make any sense to me at all, this designation of white, because I knew what white was. I mean, it's not like I had an incomplete Crayola collection or anything like that. I mean, I know what white is as a 4-year-old boy. And white, I'm not. I mean, I've got these freckles all over the place, right? I've got these brown speckles all over my pink skin. There's not a square inch on my body that is the color white. And equally, there wasn't, as far as I could tell, a square inch of exposed flesh on this other boy's body that could be called black. Certainly brown, but not black. And so I took that with me, but I never really understood it. It's been, I guess it's been 26 years now. I still don't really understand it. So when you all got your census forms, those of you who live in the United States, and you filled out the section about race or ethnicity or whatever, do you look at those things and think, boy, none of that really describes me very well at all? The notion of black or white, or the notion of even the slightly more granular list of races that are listed on a census form or on a job application or what have you, they don't really map to reality. Any biologist can tell you this. Even what we call now ethnicities, or nationalities, such as our lands of ethnic heritage. For instance, I'm Scottish and Irish and maybe a little bit Alaska Native, and a few other things, Swedish maybe. These tell us a little something about where our bloodlines may come from, and they may be relevant in medical context for a variety of reasons, but outside of their practical application, they don't really tell us much, especially over here in the United States, where, well, we're all Americans. So it's confusing to me that we continue to perpetuate these arbitrary concepts. It was confusing to me when I was a little boy, and it's confusing to me still, and I don't think I've ever really grown out of that confusion and simply accepted that this is the case. I don't understand it when coming from white people, and I don't understand it when coming from black people, and I don't understand it when coming from anybody else. But then there's probably a lot about the race issue that I don't understand, because when I fill out that form, I am Caucasian. I am a white guy, even though that doesn't really have any meaning for me, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm still the pink boy with brown polka dots, and that's what I've always been, and I suppose that's what I always will be. I'd like to get your thoughts on this, if you happen to have any. This is relevant to me at this point because, of course, there's all of this going on with the South Park Muhammad thing, and there's a lot of, well, Islam is taking a lot of flack right now for their general intolerance. And there's a perfect example of arbitrary ideas being inculcated in youth, and youth having no choice but to stand up and follow. And that's sad. And I remember what that feels like in that one moment in my life where I learned a concept that I could have gone my whole life never knowing about and been just fine. And so would all of you. And so would they. And so would all of us. This is all very silly. I've been able to take a step back and look at that moment and laugh about it and think about it, and it's a part of my life, and I don't let it guide me. You know, it's not a guiding star. My parents certainly didn't bring me up to be a racist, and nobody that I knew was a racist when I was growing up. It wasn't until I got a little older that I started seeing that phenomenon in action, and by then I just didn't understand it, and I don't think that I ever will. And I don't think that I will ever understand it when Muslims threaten death to people who draw silly little cartoons. I don't know. It all seems like the same bundle of crap to me. None of it makes any sense, except that it's all pretty much the same thing, arbitrary nonsense with which people have stuffed their heads in order to feel full, to fill some void of meaninglessness, perceived or otherwise. It's a sad thing. But not all of life is sadness. We can choose. We can make choices that are moral, that are ethical. We can choose to treat people well and equally, and we can be examples of that sort of behavior in our lives, and we can be examples of how to treat others with respect. And maybe that's what the next generation of kids will pick up instead of this arbitrary nonsense. Maybe some of us in this generation have already picked that up from the generation before. I don't know how many generations it'll take to heal us of this, if we are in fact ever healed. But if we can get polio, maybe we can get this. Take care. Good luck.